From the combined crew of blindandroidusers.com and accessibleandroid.com, it's time for your favorite Android podcast. Kick back now and enjoy another fine episode from these fanboys and gals as they navigate Android from a blindness perspective. And now, here's your crew.
Hello and welcome to episode 191 of the Blind Android Users Podcast. I'm Ed Green and I'm joined today by my co-hosts Warren Carr, Karene, Sally Kunders and John Dyer, and we are coming to you on Saturday the 3rd of August 2024. After any announcements this week, we have Android Basics, and it's a return to Samsung One UI settings, and John starts our tour of accessibility. We then have an app of the week from Warren, and that is the Aurelian Audio Podcast Player. The next in our series on Jieshuo from Karene shows you the direct click, direct swipe, and direct scroll functions. And we close with the tip of the week from Warren again on an app he demonstrated last week. And this is about managing chapters in AntennaPod. Well, how are we all? John, how are you?
I'm doing good. It was a good week. Pretty typical. Nothing exciting going on here. What about you? How was your week?
Hot. Our office has no aircon and it was pushing north of 30 on Sunday.
Oh, no.
So very, very
Those are
sweaty.
unsafe work conditions.
Well, weirdly, in the UK, we only have a minimum temperature not to work. There is no maximum for reasons that baffle me. Happily though, our metro line is air conditioned, so at least I get some relief because our flat isn't air conditioned either. But we got through and it's cooling down now. Karene, how are you?
I'm doing well. Everything is going well here. Well, I was remembering Warren a lot this week because I was eating fruits. It's actually one of the few fruits that I eat, which is a type of fig. So the black fig, I don't know if you call it the same there, but yeah. So let's say that I'm a fruit eater I'm a fruit eater at the end. So yeah.
Key question though is, are you an Apple fan?
No, I'm not.
Karene, tell me, was this a fresh fruit or was it a canned one? What was it?
No, it's fresh because it's now it's the time that this fig is like we have this fig at that time. I don't know if you have this. Do you have this type of figs?
I don't know. Maybe California might, but wow, that's congratulations to you because that makes me happy. You're eating some fruit out there. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's an August fruit, so we should eat it through August because, well, after that we will not have it anymore.
Well, I'll say freeze it. Whatever you can. So you have the fruit that you like.
Some people may make it as a jam.
Yeah, jam, I was going to say.
I like it fresh, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sally, how are you?
I'm doing great. On Wednesday, our air conditions also got broken at work, so I had the same issue just like yours. But the next day it got fixed. And Thursday, I had a nice barbecue, remembering you, my good friend Ed.
Oh, yes.
It's coming up, the football season. It's kicking off very soon. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we can hope for about a week until we realise how bad it's going to go. So at least we can all be optimistic until the start of the first 90 minutes, can't we? Until it all goes wrong.
I'm excited for football season as well, but I have a feeling we're not talking about the same thing.
I think that's a different one. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one where the wimps all put helmets on, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, John is thinking of the El Macho football.
I call Gridiron Rugby League for wimps. But yeah, let's see if I can. Well, I didn't actually this time. I think he did it by himself. But see if I can help Patrick Mahomes win another Super Bowl, so he can overtake Shady Brady, which ought to be something the entire world can get behind. And Warren, how are you? You've been at beer festivals this week, I think.
I have been. My wife has an art booth at our Hops Festival, and this time of year we have that Hops Festival. So it's usually the last weekend of July uh, into the first few days of August, and so it started Thursday. So basically, it started. Was that the first? I think that was the first, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been very hot. I mean, yesterday was exceptionally hot, 102 degrees. I mean, yeah, we were under the shade and all of that, but oh boy, it was hot. So I'm glad it's coming to an end today. I think I'm just going to stay home today because I'm going to be, yeah, doing the podcast editing and all of that. So good excuse.
And how many beers did you have?
No, none at all. I didn't even go to the beer tent. But there's a beer tent there. All I could think about is Ed in the beer tent.
I wouldn't have moved from the beer tent. I take it the tents aren't air conditioned, or have people brought portable units?
I don't know. I don't think it ever is. It's cooler there. It is at our little park here, and basically it also acts like the school park for the kids. But then it's a huge one, so it's a little town. So we have usage of it for both the school when the school is in session, and then when it's not in session, like now, everybody's using that park. So that's what it is. But lots of trees there.
I approve of that. Beer festival in a school park. What could possibly go wrong with that?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. And you can go swing on the swings if you don't want to be in the park area where the festival is going on. But the kids love it in my wife's art booth.
And presumably you can go on the swings with a beer. Is that I would have thought?
Yeah,
Seems
well,
like a thing.
here you can do whatever you want. It's
Oh,
just
good.
it's an open town.
Excellent.
And now, the Android Basics segment. This is a segment where we discuss the things that power your device from behind the scenes. And now, here's this week's episode, Android Basics.
Now we turn to our Android Basics section, and after a bit of a hiatus, we are back looking at One UI settings, and John brings us the first part in a series on accessibility.
Welcome back to our series on Samsung's One UI. Today we're going to be discussing the all-important accessibility settings. And from the main settings page, what you're going to look for is
accessibility, vision, hearing, dexterity.
I'm going to open this.
Accessibility, navigate up, button.
And today we're just going to focus on mostly the visual settings, and we'll jump back into this for the next installment. But at the top here we have
accessibility, search settings, button.
The usual search button.
More options, button.
And of course at the top right, more options. I'm going to show you what's in here.
Pop-up window, add to home screen, in list.
The option to add an accessibility settings icon to your home screen for quick access.
More about accessibility.
And then this will take you to Samsung's website, where they will tell you their stance on accessibility, if you want to call it that.
More options, button.
And below this we have
recommended for you, 5 accessibility functions in use.
And of course, depending on how many you have enabled, this is going to be different for you. But going in here,
recommended for you, navigate up, button. Recommended for you. Functions you're using. Heading. Touch and hold delay. Set touch and hold delay to default. Button. Reduce animations. Turn off reduce animations. Button.
So as you can see, this is just a quick way to see what you've enabled and disable it, I guess, in case it's causing issues on your phone. But I'm not going to go through this entire page. Like I said, it's going to be different for everybody. So backing out.
Accessibility. Recommended for you. 5 accessibility functions in use.
Next we have
vision enhancements.
And this is what we're going to be focusing on today. although we will continue the accessibility settings in the next installment. Opening this up, let's see what we have. There's actually a lot of stuff in here.
Vision enhancements. Navigate up. Button.
What we have first at the top here is
Display mode. Heading.
and there are 3 options from left to right that we can choose here.
Not selected. Default. Button. Not selected. High contrast. Button. Not selected. Large display. Button.
And I don't have any of these selected because I have customized my display settings how I like them, but if you just wanted a quick way to either restore defaults, set everything to high contrast, or enlarge everything on the display, this is where you would go to do that. Below this we have
Colors and clarity. Heading.
the colors and clarity section includes.
High contrast theme. None.
Here's where you can go to change the theme to make it easier for you to see if you're low vision. Most of these settings are actually for low vision.
High contrast fonts.
Here's where you can toggle high contrast fonts on and off. What this will do is it puts a if the text is black, it will put a white outline around the text so that if it's on a dark background, you could still read it. After this we have
High contrast keyboard. Works with Samsung keyboard only. Disabled.
as you heard, and that's why it's disabled because Samsung keyboard is not my default, but here's where you can turn this on, and what it will do is, I don't know if it's yellow or white, but the keys are a very bright color, and then the letters on the keyboard are most likely black. And next,
Highlight buttons.
this is similar to high contrast text, but for buttons.
Relumino outline.
Relumino Outline is a new feature. This was just added in One UI 6.1, I believe. I don't think it was even in One UI 6.0. But what this is, it's basically high contrast for everything. So even if you're watching a video, it will detect objects in that video and give them an outline. For example, if you're watching a football game, all the football players will have outlines around them, and the lines on the field will be brightened up. The field itself will be a little darker, so it adds high contrast to everything, which is actually a really nice feature. I don't know, it seems very advanced, so I don't know if it's hardware specific, if you need a certain processor to do this or not, but it does appear here on my S24 Ultra. I'll go in here to show you some of the options.
Relumino outline. Navigate up. Button. See objects and images and videos more clearly with strong outlines. Adjust the color and thickness of the outlines to make them stand out. Relumino outline shortcut.
Of course, you can add it to an accessibility shortcut like any of these accessibility settings.
Off Relumino outline shortcut. Switch. Outline thickness. Decrease. Button. 0%. Outline thickness. Slider. Increase. Button. Selected. Radio button. Adaptive. Not selected. Radio button. Black.
And this adaptive and black and so on is where you can either have it choose the color of the outline based on the content to make it the most visible, or you can just have the outline always be a specific color if you set the color. Backing out of here.
Vision enhancements. Relumino outline.
Next is,
Color inversion.
this is exactly what it sounds like. It just inverts all the colors, so white colors become black, black becomes white, and so on and so forth. So if there's a specific app that does not support dark mode and it's too bright, you can turn this on.
Color correction. Off.
Color correction, you can go in here and disable specific colors if you have a certain type of color blindness where you have difficulty distinguishing between certain colors. And then next we have,
Color filter. Off.
I'm going to go in here
Color filter. Navigate up. Button.
because I'm not entirely sure what this is,
Off color filter. Switch.
to be honest.
Add a color filter over the entire screen. This may help make text easier to read.
That's the description of it.
Color filter shortcut.
That's the shortcut.
Off color filter shortcut. Switch.
And then you can choose
Opacity. 25%. Opacity. Slider.
the opacity of it, how much you can see through this color filter or not.
Selected. Radio button. Blue.
And then here's the list where you can choose the color that you want the filter to be. Backing out.
Vision enhancements. Color filter. Off.
Next we have
Reduce animations. Prevent some screen effects. Useful if you're sensitive to animation or screen movement. On. Switch.
So this is if you're sensitive to screen movement, or in my case, sensitive to sluggishness. So I have this enabled because it just makes your phone faster if you're not sitting there waiting for animations to happen. And next,
Reduce transparency and blur. Reduce visual effects on dialogues and menus to make them easier to see. On. Switch.
I think that's self-explanatory.
Extra dim.
Extra dim allows you to dim your screen even more than the phone normally lets you. This is mainly for if you're sensitive to light, but I think it's most often used just to help with battery life for those that are completely blind and don't want the screen to be lit up at all. Next we have
Size and zoom. Heading.
the size and zoom section.
Magnification.
Now magnification is for on-screen magnification. I'm going to go in here.
Magnification. Navigate up. Button. Magnification shortcut. Triple tap screen.
And as you can tell, I have my shortcut assigned to triple tap, and this is an additional shortcut you can assign magnification to other than the regular standard accessibility shortcuts. I'll give you pros and cons of this shortcut. When you have it set to triple tap, the magnification will actually magnify the point on the screen where you do the triple tap. So you don't have to worry about moving the magnification area to that point after you enable it. And you can also do a triple tap and hold and move your finger around the screen, and the magnification lens will follow your finger along the screen. So if you have just a specific line of text you want to try to read, you can triple tap at the beginning of that line of text, hold, and then just slide your finger along the text and read as you're moving. The downside to having triple tap as a shortcut is it makes your phone feel slower, because if you're a screen reader user, every time you double tap, it's waiting a split second to see, is this just a double tap or is this going to be a triple tap? So that delays the action of a double tap by a little bit. And similarly, even if you don't use a screen reader, every time you tap the screen is going to be waiting to see if it's just a tap or if you're going to continue tapping or not. So obviously it doesn't bother me too much, or I wouldn't have this shortcut enabled this way, but it's up to you whether you want to use that or not. And then some more settings we have here.
Magnification type. Full screen.
I have it set to full screen, but you can set it to partial screen, which looks like a floating lens on a specific area of the screen, which you can move around, you can adjust the size of. Or you can have this set to both, and there will be a toggle always at the bottom where you can switch between partial and full, but I always use full, so I have it set to full.
Keep magnification when switching apps in full screen view. On. Switch.
That's another setting.
Move with cursor while typing. Move the magnified area as you type. This isn't supported in all apps. On. Switch.
And then at the very bottom, there's just a description of magnification, which I'll let it read to you.
Use the magnification shortcut to turn screen zoom on or off. You'll see either a zoomed in area or an outline around the whole screen. If the whole screen has an outline around it, tap anywhere in the box to start zooming, or touch and hold to zoom temporarily. While zoomed in, you can pinch to adjust. Swipe with 2 fingers to scroll.
Now backing out.
Vision enhancements. Magnification.
Next we have
Magnifier.
And magnifier, not to be confused with magnification, is an app that uses the camera on your phone to magnify what's in the real world. So if you have a document you're trying to read, you can use this to replace what a physical magnifying glass would do. Of course, you could do a lot more with it. It will allow color filters, and you can adjust the zoom level, and basically the typical features you would find in a magnification app. And going in here, you can assign it to a specific accessibility shortcut if you want to. Next we have
Cursor thickness.
This is for adjusting the thickness of the typing cursor. So when your edit box is active, the cursor that shows where the text will be input, you can adjust the thickness of that cursor.
Pointer size and color.
And this will let you adjust the size and color of the mouse pointer if you have a mouse connected.
Font size and style.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go into that.
Screen zoom.
Now, screen zoom, also not to be confused with magnification, lets you permanently adjust the size of items on screen. This can also be found in display settings. And what this does is it just makes the items larger on your screen. So if you're the type to explore by touch, this could make it easier to find certain items. Of course, it will also make you have to scroll more because less items will be visible on the screen at once. But this is where you can go to tweak that if you want to see if that helps you. And the next heading in this section is
Spoken assistance. Heading.
And below this,
Speak keyboard input allowed. Disabled while talkback is on. Disabled.
and that's exactly what it sounds like. And it's disappointing that it does not let you go in here if you have talkback enabled and set it up. It obviously won't work with talkback enabled, but I think a lot of people would use this feature if they could turn off talkback while the keyboard was on screen and just type and have the keyboard announce what keys are being pressed and what words are being typed. Similar to what people do with Jieshuo or CSR, where they can disable browse by touch while they're typing to make the typing experience much faster. So I think it's disappointing that we can't access this as talkback users easily. You'd have to have somebody set it up for you, basically. And then we have
Audio description. If available, automatically select the audio soundtrack with an audio description while watching videos on. Switch.
And I'm sure most of us know what audio description is, and this is the global setting for it. I'm assuming that app developers have to tie into this some way, so even if you go into an app and you have this switch on and audio descriptions are not automatically playing, I would not assume that that service doesn't support it or that app doesn't support it. But hopefully, if the developers are doing it right, it will automatically be on for you if you have this enabled. Next we have,
Bixby Vision for accessibility.
going in here,
Accessibility modes. Navigate up. Button.
Bixby Vision is similar to Lookout if you've ever used the Lookout app, and here are some of the modes.
Accessibility modes on. Switch. Scene describer. Capture a scene to hear a detailed description of it on. Switch. Object identifier. Point the camera at something to hear what it is on. Switch. Text reader. Point the camera at some text to hear it read out loud on. Switch. Color detector. Point the camera at an object to hear what color it is on. Switch.
And these are all modes that, if you have these switches enabled, will appear in the Bixby Vision app alongside the normal modes for sighted users. Next we have
Voice feedback. Read the results of searches aloud. On. Switch. Disabled.
And I'm going to double tap to show you why this is disabled.
Can't use voice feedback while TalkBack is on.
Which makes sense because you're going to be using TalkBack to read that anyway.
Text-to-speech settings.
And this will just take you to the regular text-to-speech settings so you can adjust the text-to-speech engine and its settings for those search results. Below this,
Open Bixby Vision button.
we'll just take you to the Bixby Vision app. Backing out.
Vision enhancements. Bixby Vision for accessibility.
The last thing we have here,
Voice label. Write voice recordings to NFC tags to provide you with information when you're nearby. The tags are purchased separately and can be associated with objects or locations you use regularly.
so this seems like a very helpful feature, but it's not something I have any experience with. And this is all that's in the Vision Enhancements section. So backing out of this,
Accessibility. Vision enhancements.
and right below this, we have TalkBack.
TalkBack.
And if you go here,
TalkBack. Navigate up. Button.
here's the page where you can enable TalkBack.
TalkBack. Off TalkBack. Switch.
This is the switch where you will turn TalkBack on or off. Of course, you can also assign it to a shortcut, which is what the next item is.
TalkBack shortcut.
Just to show you your options.
TalkBack shortcut. Navigate up. Button. Select actions you can use to start or stop using TalkBack.
And the choices we have here are
Not checked. Checkbox. Use accessibility gesture. To start or stop TalkBack, swipe up from the bottom of the screen with 3 fingers.
and of course, we'll touch on this later, but this could also be an accessibility button if you have that set up, which we'll cover in advanced accessibility features later,
Accessibility button settings. Button.
which you could also access here. The next option is,
Checked. Checkbox. Press side and volume up buttons.
and this is Samsung's accessibility shortcut that they've added in addition to the accessibility shortcuts that come with stock Android.
Not checked. Checkbox. Press and hold volume up and down buttons for 3 seconds.
And this is, of course, the most used shortcut for TalkBack. And that brings us to the end of what we're going to be covering today. In the next installment, we will continue accessibility settings. For now, I will send it back to the crew for further discussion.
Anyone want to start with any comments or questions? I've got some, but
Well, this is a very important part because for those of us who are blind or anyone having any accessibility problems, this is a place to get familiarized with. And so thanks, John, for starting us on this one. It's a very important segment of the phone, just like a sighted person may find the camera probably the most important part. For me, though, this segment is the most important part of my phone because without it, guess what? I'm in dark waters. So thank you so much. And there's so much to be covered here. I don't even know where to get started, John, to be honest.
I quite like the sound of that. It doesn't benefit me particularly, but that new video thing where you can, have sports lines blown up and, well, not blown up, but contrasted out. So you can see borders around players and goal lines. That all, given how many fine margins you get in video replays in sport, it sounds like features that people without vision impairments might want to turn on.
Yeah, I really like it. So it works system wide. I mentioned videos because that kind of proves like if it'll work in a video with real time, it works anywhere. But yeah, it works for everything like images that you might be scrolling through, just basic the UI in general. It just makes everything. It outlines everything. It makes it much easier to see if you're low vision.
And I wasn't paying proper attention, but I don't think I heard there was a toggle switch for it. Did I just miss it? Or is it not? Does it not quite work like that?
There is a toggle switch for it, and you can also assign it to a shortcut. I just may have skipped over it.
Okay. Yeah, and as I say, I was doing something else as well. So the accessibility shortcut. You showed us with TalkBack that you had quite a few options, and here's where I've got a question for Warren actually. So obviously we have users with varying degrees of confidence with the touchscreen, perhaps various dexterity, and while some might even be using it under duress or sufferance. So what they really might want is hardware buttons to enable accessibility features, and not that virtual button. And I see that Samsung has two hardware enabled accessibility buttons, so you can have TalkBack and Jieshuo without, as I say, needing a touchscreen button. Warren, how many accessibility hardware options does the Pixel have?
Well, this has always been a plus for Samsung, and it's one of the goodies that we find if you're using Samsung device, for example. It makes it possible for you to have two screen readers without going in there to turn off the other one, and whatever, just use whatever the key combination and just simply invoke the other one. So I really like that about Samsung, to be honest.
So one word answer then, Warren. Samsung has two options. Pixel has...
Well, we know that the Pixel
There
only
you go.
has, it's Sally boy.
I'm
knew
gonna
this was
jump
coming.
in to defend Pixel for slightly here.
Thank
So
you.
the answer is one. It only has
One.
one. But I will say
Really to
this.
defeat.
I will say this. That shortcut is much faster on a Pixel than it is on a Samsung phone. You have to press and hold the buttons for like 1 second, 1 full second on a Pixel, whereas, and I don't know why Samsung has it this way, but you have to press it for and hold for 3 seconds when you're pressing both volume keys. And I'm not a fan of it. Like I understand why they might want it to be that long during setup, so it's not accidentally triggered. But for like regular use of triggering the shortcut, I think it takes too long.
But if you're someone who really needs a hardware accessibility second option, and obviously the Pixels don't give that to you, maybe that's a price you just pay.
No, I understand, and there's no question about it. I'm not defending that, but I think it's a very beautiful thing on the part of Samsung for giving us two of those. And maybe one of these days we could also have that in Google. But for now, the high points go to Samsung, and I love Samsung. Don't get me wrong. I love the device.
Yeah, and there's something that John should know, which is if you don't want to wait, you can just use the volume plus power, which is quicker if we compare it to the holding of the volume keys on Pixels. So this doesn't work. I mean, your excuse doesn't work.
Yeah, but the Pixel doesn't allow you to use power and volume.
Yeah, I know. What I was
accessibility.
saying is that on Samsung, if you don't want to wait, you just press or you use the volume up power plus power shortcut, which will be so fast.
It is fast, and I use it all the time. I love it. That's my main shortcut. I'm just saying, Pixel only does one shortcut, but the shortcut it does right. That's all I'm saying.
But it doesn't do it as well as Samsung does its other shortcut, does it? So Pixel loses out to Samsung on its best shortcut, and it loses out again because it's only got one.
Yeah, so let's say, okay, Samsung wins this.
It's getting trounced.
This is much.
Yeah.
But
But I shall not seek to influence listeners any further. You can make your own choice about phones.
Yeah, well, it's a good device. It's just that some belly achers out there tend to give Samsung a hard time, but I'm not in that camp. There are things that Samsung actually has done right, and I've always been a staunch Samsung guy. In the early days, it just was maybe like 9 or so years ago that I jumped ship, but prior, I was a Samsung guy all the way, and you can't say Samsung is a bad device. I love it. It's a good device.
We'll be highlighting more areas in accessibility where Samsung trounces Pixels in future episodes. I had a question as well about that speak aloud or read aloud keyboard thing you couldn't get into with TalkBack because it showed it was disabled. Will it work if you use Jieshuo?
It does work if you use Jieshuo or CSR. I haven't tried it with Prudence. I'm assuming it would also work with that. But yeah, it's so you can get in there and you can enable it. But I haven't actually tried to use it with Jieshuo. Karene's tried it, so maybe she can tell us what it's like.
Yeah, actually, if you use the TalkBack spoofer service that we covered before, it won't work because it will consider that TalkBack is running. So you will have the same things or the same message that you hear when TalkBack is running, and you will not be able to activate it. However, if you use the main service of Jieshuo or the Jieshuo Lite, there will be no problem. You can just activate it. You can change the settings, everything. But if you want to use it, or if you are planning to use it with Browse by Touch enabled, you should pay attention that sometimes there may be a conflict between the feature itself and Jieshuo announcing the letters. Well, I haven't noticed that. Actually, I did a very short test, but what I have noticed that Jieshuo is faster and it will just announce the letters. But if you delete, you will hear the deleted character using the feature itself. So it's better if you are planning to use the keyboard with Browse by Touch enabled, just ignore the feature, don't use it. But if you are planning to use the feature with Browse by Touch suspended, it will work. It will announce the letters. But until this moment, I can say that if you are able to use Gboard old version, it's better to use it because it's still faster. So Samsung's announcing of characters while Browse by Touch is suspended is slower than how Jieshuo announces the characters when Browse by Touch is suspended. Of course, if you're using the old Gboard, because with the new Gboards, this is not possible.
Interesting. And John, have you ever tried seeing if you can access the settings by sort of turning TalkBack off, tapping the button, and then turning TalkBack back on again? Will that work if you want to set it up?
Yeah, it will. So there's a couple ways you can do it. That's the first way. So you just go into the settings, find where it is on the screen, turn off TalkBack with your accessibility shortcut, then tap that part of the screen. It'll take you in there, and you'll be in the settings. Then you'll have to do that again to turn the switch on. But from that point on, you can adjust all of the settings from within that page using TalkBack. Another way you could turn it on if you don't really care about messing with the settings is you could just go to the advanced accessibility settings, go to the accessibility shortcuts, and assign the read aloud typing to one of the shortcuts. Then you could turn it on with that shortcut and it will just stay on from that point on. And you could just unassign it from the shortcut if you were using that shortcut for something else. But then the way you would use it practically after you have it enabled in the settings set how you want is, and this is for people who want something similar to direct touch typing while using TalkBack, which direct touch typing is something from VoiceOver. It's something a lot of people ask us about when they move over to Android, and Android does not have an equivalent. But this is the closest way to get it with TalkBack. And what you'd have to do is, once you have it set up and enabled, you would just have to use your shortcut to turn TalkBack off anytime you're typing, and then you can interact with the screen just as fast as a sighted person would, and the TTS will read aloud characters and words depending on what your settings are for you. So I'm horrible at this sort of typing. I just use the Braille keyboard, but I think a lot of people would like to do it this way.
I think that what will happen is that next week we're going to have John do this as a tip of the week, because it's a good idea if you want to be able to just interact directly with the keyboard without the screen reader. Of course, you have to kind of have an idea of the keyboard layout and all of that in order to be able to not, make a lot of mistakes or whatever, because you're not going to be like, say, I'm just going to be gliding like you would while using TalkBack or whatever. It's a good idea if you know exactly where the keys are or kind of have an idea of where they are. Like you said, John, this is like an equivalent to the Fruitvale way of doing the direct typing. So I like the whole idea. We have this, and so anyone who wants to do that would be able to try it and see if they like it or not. And of course, it's only with the Samsung keyboard, as you've indicated.
John, I have a question for you since you use Samsung keyboard more than I do. Well, how can you, or is it possible to long press or tap and hold on a key to be able to see the symbols or the alternative characters?
Not that I know of, but I don't use it much either. I just to try this is the other reason I turned it on. I normally use Gboard as well.
I tried it. It seems not working, but I don't want, because I'm usually not giving Samsung stuff the enough chance. So I was saying maybe I'm just missing something or something.
Karene girl, you're a mystery sometimes to me because you love your Samsung stuff, and yet in the same breath, there's stuff that you don't care about. I find that rather very fascinating.
Yeah, I will let you know what's the thing. Actually, I like hardware, but I don't like the software. I don't like the duplication. Okay, we have Gboard, we have Samsung keyboard, we have Google Assistant, we have Bixby, we have Keep Notes, we have Samsung Notes, and that. So it's, I hate this duplication, and I hate that they try always to copy Google stuff, and usually they come with inferior services. So yeah, why to bother?
So I kind of have been wishing for a Samsung keyboard. I wish we had it on the Play Store so anyone can install it if they wanted to. And I do want to mention that I think that earlier on, before the newer versions of the Samsung keyboard, I like the older ones better. They were very responsive and all of that. I mean, I'm not saying that this is not responsive, and I'd always pined away for a Samsung keyboard. And now that I have a Samsung phone, more than Samsung phone, I'm not quite, impressed with the keyboard like I used to.
I mean, I don't think I prefer the app overall, but the one thing I do like about one of the Samsung apps is that on the phone app, the keypad is a tab and not a silly button hiding somewhere, sort of above the tabs on the right-hand side. Like, why doesn't Google just make the keypad a tab? That would be so much easier.
Well, ACR does it better here. ACR is the third-party phone app. Actually, you have the choice. You have the choice to have it appear when you just open the phone app. It will open the dialer by default. Also, you can long press the icon and then tap the dialer. So I think here ACR beats them together. Beats them both, actually.
Yeah, I quite like ACR for some of its other stuff, like the recording and things like that. I don't know. I just think Samsung kind of keeps it simple. Keypad.
Yeah, ACR is a great dealer. Thanks to Karene, I'm a full-time user now.
I like ACR.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, remember last year you were telling me about it, and I downloaded and started using it.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was able to convert several people to use ACR, and it's a great one.
Yeah.
Well, I think, though, that Google could actually have made the keypad as a tab. I mean, we've got 4 tabs at the bottom. I mean, a lot of apps have 5 tabs,
Exactly.
5 tabs. So they could actually simply implement that keypad tab there as a tab instead of, sitting directly above the voicemail.
Google Dialer, do you still need to swipe 3 times to move to the next item in the call logs?
I don't know. I'm not a swiper, so I don't know what you're talking about, Sally.
But isn't that every Google app, because they don't use actions?
Yeah. Google, that's Google.
I did want to ask if either Karene and Salas looked in their accessibility settings, and because I'm curious, I mentioned in my demo the Relumino outline thing. it feels like a very advanced feature, and I'm wondering if
Yeah, yeah.
if it works on all Samsung devices or if it's
I
just
can see it on my S23, but never used it.
Do you know if you have it on your A series phone, Karene?
Yes, it's there, but also I can't try it because, well, I will not be able to see it, but it's there.
Yeah.
No, no, I understand. I just wondering if it was there.
Yeah, it's
So
there.
that's
Yeah.
good that it's there. They're
Yeah.
not reserving it for the higher end phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think like the A series that Karene has though is a higher version or
Yeah, it's
model
higher.
of the.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you'll find it on something like A11s or
No.
A02s and stuff like that. Definitely, you're not going to find that in there.
It's not on One UI 5, right?
No, it's
Right.
on 6.
So
No, it's not.
I can't test it on the A71 because it's still here, but it's still on 5.1 and it will not be upgraded to 6 actually.
Up next is the App of the Week segment. This is a segment dedicated to app demonstrations. Should you have an app that you would like to demonstrate for our listeners, feel free to send us the recording of such an app demo to contact us at blindandroidusers.com. And now for this week's episode, here's your App of the Week.
And now we move on to our App of the Week, and Warren demonstrates the Aurelian Audio Podcast Player.
Hi, for episode 191 App of the Week, this is demonstrating the Aurelian, Aurelian. Aurelian is a podcasting client, and it's a part of the Castro.fm group. For today's demonstration, I'm demonstrating this on my Galaxy S23 Plus running One UI 6.11 and TalkBack 14.x. I am on the Play Store of the app, and I'll now navigate to the About so we hear the description of the app and you can decide as to whether or not this is an app you would like to be associated with. I'll now tap on that About and let's hear the description of the app, and then we'll go into the app and show you around. Here is the About.
About this app, heading. Google Play Store, Aurelian Audio Podcast Player, details, out of list. The Daily, interview shows, crime junkie, history podcasts, we have it all. Aurelian Audio cuts through the noise with its sleek, minimal design, simplifying your podcast experience while giving you all the tools you need to enjoy your favorite shows. It allows you to effortlessly stream or download podcasts from any public RSS feed and also integrates robust library management and smart synchronization features. The app supports video playback and lets you easily navigate your favorite genres. Whether you're a crime junkie, prefer interview shows with a guest, or only listen to history podcasts, we have it all. Finally, Aurelian blends its simple, clean design with the personalization of Material You, creating a delightful experience that is uniquely yours. Main features. Whenever a feed updates, you get it right away. Allows importing your entire library via OPML or a single RSS feed from your clipboard. Uses modern Android APIs for maximum performance and battery efficiency. We won't ask you to turn off battery saver just to listen to a podcast. Get notified about new episodes of your favorite shows. Displays storage info to help you manage your disk space. Wear OS companion app. It syncs your active queue and allows download and playback on the watch. The app also includes a basic tile for easy launching. Explore podcast categories. Find a podcast to help you learn English or get the daily from a variety of news sources. Customizable. Change sync frequency or older archive episodes as newer ones are published to the feed. Podcast widget. Supports premium feeds and password-protected podcasts from services like Wondery, Libsyn, Odyssey, Slate Plus, Podcast One, Earwolf, Radiotopia, and others. Android Auto support. Chromecast support. This app is freemium with a limited number of podcasts. Visit us on Reddit at https://www.reddit.com/r/Aurelian Audio/. Aurelian is now part of Castro Podcasts. https://castro.fm.
And that's the description of the app. As you can hear from the description of the app, this is a freemium app. In other words, there are no ads. The catch, however, is that you are limited to only 20 subscriptions. In other words, you cannot subscribe to more than 20 podcasts. So if you want to subscribe to more than that, then you'll have to pay. And I do want to mention here that the subscription is 99 cents a year. In other words, it's $1 annual subscription. I have subscribed to it, and now I'll go back and tap on the open because I've already installed it, and then we'll go into it and see what it all has to offer. Let's go back to the main page of the app and tap on that open.
Play Store. About this app. Heading in list.
I'll now scroll back to top and tap on open.
Open button.
Here's the open.
Aurelian. Library. Out of list.
As I indicated, whether you've paid for it or not, there are no ads. And the good news is that you could take it for a spin for 30 days without paying a dime. The first thing we heard is library, and that corresponds to the bottom tab that is selected. That's what all that means. And that's the information, the text string that you'll get on the top left. Moving right.
Search button.
We hear search, and to the right of that,
Drop-down menu button.
we hear drop-down menu. That's all that you have on the top. Now moving down,
Selected. Podcasts. Podcasts. Checkbox.
we got a couple tab-like tabs here. The first one says selected podcast and it's not selected. Then the second tab,
Not selected. Episodes. Episodes. Checkbox.
and that's to the right. That's all that we have. And now moving to the midsection, we come across
You don't subscribe to any podcasts.
there's a text string here that says you don't subscribe to any podcasts. In other words, you are not subscribed to any podcasts. Now, moving down,
Browse podcasts button.
we come across a button that says Browse Podcasts. Below that,
Or
or you could
Import an OPML file button.
tap here to import an existing OPML file that you may have from another podcast client. Moving on, now we have the tabs at the bottom, and starting on the bottom left, by default, library is selected.
Selected. Library. Tab 1 of 4. In list. 4 items.
Next tab on the right,
Explore. Tab 2 of 4.
explore. You could go in here and explore all the different categories of podcasts and all of that. Next, to the right,
Now playing. Tab 3 of 4.
now playing, of course, will show you what is currently being played. The last tab on the bottom right will be
Queue. 3 new notifications. Tab Q 4 of 4.
queue would be the things that you've gotten in the queue, the things that you've queued for playback. I think I probably have Blind Android in there. That's what we have in the layout of the app. Let's go back up though to the top right corner where we saw that drop-down menu. I'll now move my finger to the top right part of the phone.
Drop down menu. Button. Out of list. Pop up window. Settings.
Tapping on the drop-down menu, we heard settings. And by the way, this is the only item here in the drop-down menu. I'll tap on the settings and look at what we have.
Aurelian. Navigate up. Button.
I'll now explore downward from here to navigate to top. I'll go downward and see the items contained from within the settings.
Aurelian Premium. Heading. In list.
We are told this is Aurelian Premium because I have paid for the 99 cents annual subscription. Below this heading though, we've got
Premium subscription. Manage your subscription.
You could go in here to manage the subscription. So if you're not subscribed yet, you could go here and do so. Next,
Appearance, heading.
the appearance heading.
App theme, system.
Go in here and choose how you want it to look. Next,
New episode indicator. Show new episode bubble with feeds in your library, on, switch.
next.
Download and sync, heading.
We now come to the download and sync. Next,
Global feed settings. Configure options that apply to all feeds by default.
you could go in here and choose how things appear globally. It's totally up to you. Next,
Download queued episodes. Automatically download episodes when they're added to the queue, off, switch.
next,
Download only on Wi-Fi. Turning this on will reduce mobile data usage, on, switch.
next.
Background sync interval, every 3 hours.
You can go in here and change how often it will check for new episodes. Next,
Miscellaneous, heading.
coming across the miscellaneous heading, here's what we've got.
Storage.
We come across storage,
Import-export.
the importation and exportation. Next,
App info, heading.
we come across the app info, and here's what we've got.
Help.
Help.
Acknowledgements.
Next,
Demo mode.
next,
Version 2.3.3271.
and that's the last item. I'll go back. We are now back in the menu eye of the app. And here you could either tap on the search there on the top right, or you could tap on import your OPML, or you could tap on the explore tab and go explore the different categories of podcasts that you could subscribe to. I do want to mention here in passing, however, that if you tap on the search and if you've searched for anything, you will see the history of the podcasts that you have searched for. For example, I have done a little bit of a search, and if I tap on my search, I'll tap on search and show you what it says.
Search, button, out, back. Search for podcasts. Search for podcasts, edit box. Showing English, US, QWERTY.
And you could simply search for what you are looking for. However, below that though, it will show you the history of the things that you've searched for. For example, if I put my finger down,
Search history item, Christian Research Institute.
I have searched for that. And I do want to mention also that this also supports video podcasts as well. I'm going to search for blind Android users.
Use voice typing.
Blind Android users. I double tap to stop the dictation, and now putting my finger near the top.
Blind Android users podcast, in list.
And I'll tap.
Keyboard hidden, Aurelian. Episode artwork, image, out of list.
Tapping on blind Android users, we're now on a page and we're being shown the image of the blind Android users. That is our logo here. And then moving my finger down, we come across
Blind Android users podcast.
moving down.
Technology, in list.
So it tells us the categories, technology podcast.
Go to episode website, button.
There's a button there toward the right that says go to the website, and another button to the right of that
Share, button.
is the share. Those are the buttons that you find there almost in the midsection of the phone on the right side. Moving down,
Blind Android users.
and to the right of that,
Collapse, button. At Blind Android users, we strive to make using Android as easy as possible for every blind person who's
I just stopped it. So basically the whole idea is telling you what the information it sees and all of that. Moving down,
192 episodes.
next,
Episode artwork, 5 days ago, E190, in queue, episode 190, third quarter app bonanza, 1 hour 16 minutes.
and below that you'll see the previous episode. And then toward the bottom on the right, though, we have a drop down that says,
Drop down menu, button, out of list.
we got drop down menu button. And then below that,
Subscribe, button.
there's the subscribe button. And that's what we have. So if I tap on subscribe, for example,
Subscribe, button, out of list. Success. Dismiss, button.
so there was a toast message at the bottom of my screen saying, I have successfully subscribed to Blind Android Users Podcast. All right, let's see how we manage it. Let's tap on one of these episodes. I'm going to tap on the third quarter App Bonanza episode.
Episode artwork. 5 days ago, E190. In queue, episode 190. Third quarter App Bonanza. 1 hour 16 minutes. Episode artwork. Image, out of list.
I have tapped on episode 190. Let's see what we have.
1 hour 16 minutes.
And moving down,
74 megabytes.
next.
48 meters 38 left.
So I have listened to it even though I wasn't subscribed to it, and it's telling me I have 48 minutes left.
Episode 190. App Bonanza. Announcements. Happy birthday to Accessible Android, which turned 1 this week.
There you see some of the show notes. Now, on the right-hand side, we have
Drop-down menu, button.
that drop-down menu that we saw earlier on, and below that
Stream, button.
is the stream button. Now, if I tap on that drop-down menu,
Drop-down menu,
we got
Archive, button. Mark played, button. Download, button. Remove from queue, button. Drop-down menu, button.
and I'm back to the drop-down, and below that,
Stream, button.
stream button. I'm going to tap on the stream.
Or to give people who need your address but you might not know too well. And that app is Instant Address.
I just double tapped with 2 fingers to stop the playback. And now, before I bring this to a close, let's go ahead and take a look at the Now Playing tab, because in here we have some important items, including things like moving to chapters and all of that. I'll now tap on Now Playing.
Now playing, tap. Now playing, selected.
We are on the Now Playing tab, and that's the third tab at the very bottom. Tapping on that Now Playing tab, we have some tabs at the very top. At the very top, by default, the artwork is selected. And then the second tab on the right from the top left will be
Details, tab, 2 of 3.
the details. In other words, if you want to find the details of the podcast, that's where you will go to. And the last tab here,
Chapters, tab, 3 of 3.
we have Chapters tab. Before we move to the chapters, though, on how you go ahead in choosing what chapter to play, let's look at the other items here in the Now Playing tab. And now let's move our way down toward the bottom of the phone. And so after those tabs, in the middle of the phone, we come across the image.
Episode artwork, image, in list, 3 items.
And that's our logo. Now, moving down,
Episode 190, third quarter App Bonanza.
moving down. Now, if you happen to be a swiper and you swipe from left to right here, wanting to move to the next controls and all of that, you will actually be changing the tab. So, for example, if I swipe,
Detail,
see now it moves me to the details. And if I put my finger near the top,
selected, details, tab, 2 of 3.
and if I move my finger down,
Blind Android users. Episode 190, App Bonanza. Announcements. Happy birthday to Access Spotlight. In this quarter's App Bonanza.
as you could see, that gives you all the information, that is the show notes and all of that. So now I'm going to tap on that artwork, the first tab on the top.
Artwork, tab, 1 of 3, in artwork, selected.
So the word here is if you don't want to be taken to the next tab, then do not swipe. If you want to explore what is found on each of the tabs, then you don't swipe. But if you swipe, you'll be taken to the next tab. And if you swipe again, that will put you on the Chapters tab, which is the third tab. Let's look at what we have here below the image.
Episode 190, Third Quarter App Bonanza, in list, 3 items.
And below that, there are some buttons, and starting from the left toward the middle.
Sleep Timer, button, out of list.
And once you find that, I believe you can swipe. Let me try to swipe.
Cast,
There we
disconnected.
go. It makes sense. I can swipe. Next.
Listening History, button,
We got the listening history, and I think I can still swipe. Swipe again.
37%. Slider,
There's a slider there that you can adjust the listening
battery
position if
power
you wanted to do
15%.
that.
Charge your phone.
Oops, my battery's almost out, so I'm going to hurry here. Next.
28, 23.
That's how much is left. Next.
1 hour 16 minutes and 55 seconds.
That's the totality of the episode.
Audio settings, button.
Audio settings. These are buttons moving right again.
Seek back, button.
Next.
Play or pause, button.
Next.
Seek forward, button.
Next.
Episode actions, button.
And that's the last one. And below that will be the different tabs. Let's take a look at the episode actions.
Pop-up window, download.
Next.
Mark played.
Next.
Archive.
Next.
View episode details. View podcast.
Next.
Cue next in series.
And that's the last one. Let's go back.
Episode actions, button.
And now I'll tap on the Chapters tab near the top. And
Chapters, tab, 3 of chapters, selected.
I am now in the Chapters and putting my finger near the top.
1. Intro, 0 in list.
Move my finger down.
2. Announcements, 355.
Move my finger down.
3. Audios play demo, 740.
So if I want to hear this, for example, I just tap.
Hardwood, tab, 1 of 3, in list, 3
Welcome to the Spotlight segment. This is a segment dedicated to interviews
Selected.
with developers. And that's how you manage your chapters. And that concludes the Aurelian. Thanks for listening.
Warren, you enjoying your podcast apps at the minute?
I do. We're a podcast, and so the more choices people have there in the way of podcast clients, I thought this is a good idea to put those things in there. And I think one of these days we'll also do the Addict. Have we ever done any demo of the Addict? I don't think so.
If anyone
You're
would have
kind
done
of
it, would have been me, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I did.
You're doing your own series on podcast apps now. You finished your series on reading apps. You've worked your way into.
Yeah, exactly. So
We'll have to make some playlists on YouTube. for these type of-
Obviously.
exactly.
Yeah.
So on
Like
the
10
podcasting app.
podcast apps you should try in 2024.
Thank you very much. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So Ed, if we don't have the Addict, could you do that or else?
yeah, probably.
I just don't
It's-
like that app. I don't know. The last time I checked on it, it was
It's
too much.
convoluted.
Yeah, too
Mhm.
much.
I like it. But so what's your favorite podcast app at the minute, Warren, having demonstrated about 750 of them in the past month?
Well, to be honest, I'm kind of torn. Hard torn. I really like both I like the Aurelian, I like the AntennaPod, and I also like the audios. And I think the thing that I like about the audios is that ability to record. And I tell you, I've been using that thing a lot. And all of these 3 apps, have no ads. And that's what I like about them. And, if you want the Aurelian, as I indicated, though, it's $1 a year. You're supporting the development and all of that. So, But these three have become my favorite podcasting apps. I used to be a Pocket Cast guy. I haven't used Pocket Cast ever since I started using these three podcasting apps.
Well, in this case, I'm much more traditional. I like Spotify for music and podcast together.
So Spotify, I like for music, but I'm a bit.
Yeah.
I refuse to use it for podcasts because I don't think
No,
podcasts and
it's pure for
exclusivity should be a
podcast.
thing. And Spotify
Yeah.
have exclusive podcasts. I don't think that's what a podcast
Yeah,
should
yeah.
be. It should be an RSS and an audio thing. And any podcast should be available on any podcast client. So I'll never use Spotify for podcasts. Just on.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
But if you want to record radio, I mean, the one I used probably since 2020 that will do it, and I think a guy on our email list recommended it when I first switched to Android, is V Radio.
V Radio is the
And that's
best
free.
for,
That's free.
yeah, for
So they even
online
pay $1
radio.
a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that will record. So that's what I tend to do. It won't. The BBC gets very exclusive as well, which annoys me. So it can't get a lot of BBC stuff when it plays sport, but other things it will record.
Yeah,
probably
and
for
for me, there's a TV station that I like to watch now and then. I used to watch it. It's called the Newsmax. They had the app, but now I couldn't use it anymore, or I can't use it anymore because you have to be the Plus subscriber and all of that. So the Audios player, goes around that because I could just use that and watch Newsmax and record stuff that I want to record. So definitely the Audios player is my choice
Nice.
here.
Yeah, and you didn't have too many ordeals using it, which is good.
Yeah, exactly, Mundo.
I actually have been using AntennaPod for the last week, and I think that's my new favorite. So I was using Pocket Casts, but I use Pocket Casts off and on because any Pocket Cast users know they break it every once in a while, and they broke the Explore by Touch functionality at one point, and then recently they made it so that when you were swiping between items, you had to swipe twice, and they mess it up every once in a while. So that's annoying, but I've been using AntennaPod, and I think I'm going to keep using it because it's the perfect combination of having a very simple, easy to navigate interface, but also having a lot of features and customization that you can do to it in the settings. So I'm really liking it.
And I think for me, another nice thing about all of these is that a nice podcasting app, and I'm not saying Pocket Casts doesn't, but a nice podcasting app should support both audio and video, and all of these do support that. So you can't go wrong with either. You just have to choose which one you prefer. The only thing that's missing in Audios Player, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see a chapter support. That's the only feature that I wish they will implement. But other than that, AntennaPod and the Aurelian both support chapters. So there's always a little trade-off in one way or the other.
And what about Aurelian and syncing across devices? Because that can be a killer feature for some people, can't it?
Exactly, it could be a deal breaker. I'm not sure that it does syncing with other devices. I didn't see that. I mean, it mentioned something, but I didn't see where I could sync it across my devices, or I didn't even put it on another device to try to see how that works. So I'll have to look into that, but I'm almost positive it's not there. So it's like the Addict.
Yeah, that won't either, which is a real shame because it is a great app, Podcast Addict.
And now, Jieshuo, aka Commentary Screen Reader, CSR, or if you're me, the Confused Screen Reader. This is a segment dedicated to this great popular screen reader where we show you some new feature or some feature that we believe you should be in the know of. And now, for this episode, here's your entry for Jieshuo, aka Commentary Screen Reader.
And now we move on to our next commentary or Jieshuo demonstration. And this week, Karene demonstrates direct click, direct swipe, and direct scroll.
Hi, let's talk in this Jieshuo episode about direct click, direct swipes, and direct scroll functions. Let's start with the direct click. The screen reader enables you to focus elements and activate them by double tapping anywhere on the screen. When you click an element using the screen reader with double tapping, you are using the accessibility click, or like your screen reader is clicking that element or is trying to activate that element. This works most of the times, but in certain situations, this might not work. In some apps, there's an accessibility issue where if you try to double tap a certain element, like a control or button, it will not be activated. Also, some applications may decide that a certain feature or option shouldn't appear or shouldn't work if you are using a screen reader. Example, Gboard. The pop-up on key press option is hidden when you open preferences by double tapping. Also, the read aloud in Office, Microsoft Office, if you try to enable read aloud by double tapping, you will be told that this doesn't work when the screen reader is active. Here comes the importance of direct clicking. Direct clicking is a simulation of a physical click. So you are not using the accessibility click of your screen reader, you are like clicking the element by your finger, or it's a simulation of a finger click. In TalkBack, this was present. I don't remember when they removed the feature and why it was removed in the first place, but it was possible to use the direct click. It was called click. And I will now show you one example of how this works. It's a function in Jieshuo, so you can open it from the main menu and you can assign a gesture to it. But by default, the gesture that is assigned is tapping with 2 fingers. I'll open Gboard settings.
5. Fahrenheit mess. Clipboard. Click. Settings. Application icon.
And I'll find preferences. And I'll tap with 2 fingers to simulate the direct click.
Vibration strength on key press system default unavailable. Pop-up on key press off. Long press for symbols on long press keys to access hinted symbols.
I was swiping and the pop-up on key press is there. I'll go back and now open preferences by double tapping.
Theme, text, preferences.
And I'll see by swiping also.
Sound on key press. Keys. Sound on key press. Volume, haptic, vibration strength on key press. Long press for symbols on long press keys to access hinted symbols.
So it's not there. It's hidden. Let's move now to direct swipes. These swipes are also a simulation of the swiping with your finger. So you are swiping an item. Like you are putting the finger and dragging the item in one of the 4 directions. And you know that some applications will add a certain functionality if you swipe an item. Like if you swipe a message to the left in Telegram, you will be replying to this message. Jieshuo has 4 functions, which are the swiping in the 4 directions, up, down, right, and left. Jieshuo will try to swipe the focused element. And I'll show you now using Telegram. So I will swipe left to reply to a message. And I'll try to test here if I should be touching the actual position before doing the swipe, or if swiping or moving to the item via the next focusable element or previous focusable element function or gesture is enough.
Fahrenheit. Attach media button.
So my finger is on the attach media. And I will swipe left to the previous item.
Emoji. Stick. Go to bottom. Pinned message list. Pinned message. More options but general. Go back. Fahrenheit. Reply. Harith. Avi, I'd be curious how it compares to the Pixel Watch. I actually really like. Main menu.
I'll now use the direct swipe left. From the main menu, you can assign a gesture. You can use also the voice assistant because it's a Jieshuo function.
Direct swipe left. General. Text only. Space. Reply to Avi, I'd be curious how it compares to the Pixel Watch. I actually cancel reply button.
So it is now replying to this message that I focused using the swiping method, or by moving to the item via swiping, not via touching the actual position of the element. Moving now to scrolling. The difference between the direct scroll and direct swipe is that in the scroll you are not focusing an element and doing the swipe on the element itself. It is swiping in one of the 4 directions from a certain point of the screen. I think it's the middle of the screen or near the middle. And this is like if you want to scroll, if you want to move between home screen pages, and if you want to refresh, for example, there are apps that allow you to swipe down to refresh, for example.
Home screen 1 of 2.
I will use the direct scroll up to open the all apps screen. Also, those scrolls or the direct scroll up, down, left and right are Jieshuo functions. So you can activate them from the main menu via gestures and via the voice assistant.
Main. More button. Main menu. Direct scroll up. Lookout. Members. Multi-TTS.
Let's try another thing. I'm now again on the home screen.
CX File Explorer.
It's home screen 1. I will scroll left, direct scroll left.
Main menu. More button. Main menu. Direct scroll left. Home screen 2 of 2.
It turned the page. So it's now on home screen 2. If you don't want to use these functions, whether the direct swipes or the direct scroll functions, you can swipe by 2 fingers instead of 1. And this is one of the basics. The swipe with 1 finger for non-screen reader user is with 2 fingers for a screen reader user. However, if you are swiping a certain element, usually the method of swiping by 2 fingers is not that consistent. So you may sometimes be able to long press the item and then swipe it or drag the finger before, so you don't lift the finger, you drag to the direction. It may work. Sometimes you should focus the element by putting your finger on its actual position and then scrolling and then swiping in the direction that you want using 2 fingers. And sometimes you don't need, or you shouldn't lift the finger off the screen, the finger that touched the element. You should keep it on the screen and then put another finger and swipe them together. So it's not that reliable. And I think that the direct swipes functions are easier in many situations. And now moving to the scrolling, it's easier to scroll using two fingers if we compare it to swiping an element or focused item, because here you are not focusing any element. So you're just swiping in one of the directions, 4 directions. But the scrolling functions were necessary because on Android 11, you know that multi-finger gestures were introduced, but the implementation wasn't the best on many phones, except Samsung and I think a few Pixels. But like on Xiaomi or other brands, there was a problem. If you enable multi-finger gestures, you couldn't do it with TalkBack because multi-finger gestures are hidden if you're using Android 11, so you can't use them. But if you're using Jieshuo, it's possible to open or to activate multi-finger gestures. But the problem is that the swiping with 2 fingers will be disabled. So you will not be able to use the swiping with 2 fingers to simulate the swiping with 1 finger without a screen reader. So this is a big problem, especially for those who weren't able to update to Android 12. So if a person who is stuck on Android 11 wants to use the multi-finger gestures with Jieshuo, it's possible to assign the scrolling to gestures, the direct scrolling to gestures, or to use them as functions from the main menu to try to fix the problem. Anyway, I think that direct click, direct swipes, and direct scroll functions are very important. They are very useful in certain situations. Maybe the most used one is the direct clicking function, but all of the functions may prove useful in certain scenarios or situations. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, I noticed, Karene, that direct click is the only one of those that comes with gestures a gesture by default. I guess if the others had gestures assigned to it, you might start to run out of gestures relatively rapidly.
Not really, because Jieshuo supports a lot of gestures. Maybe I'll demonstrate the ones that are now called long swipes, and they are also achieved, or you can do it. You can do them by swiping or doing an angular gesture and then holding your finger for a bit, less than a second, of course. So this type of gestures is not present in TalkBack, and some people just use it. It's slightly confusing, but when you are used to it, you will be able to have more gestures. And other than those gestures, we have the gestures that are multi-part gestures. So you can just do one gesture and then another gesture. So they will be considered as one gesture. So like you can just swipe up and then swipe down after like waiting for a little bit. So it's not considered as swipe up down gesture, and it will be an additional gesture. So you will not run out of gestures, of course, in Jieshuo. However, it's better to use sometimes the voice assistant to activate functions, or to add them to the main menu. So, I mean, to the main menu, to the first page, so you can reach them easily.
And those sort of, if we call them angular holds, I know that historically the angular gestures in TalkBack were a problem for some people. I suspect some of that was down to quality of screen as well. You say they're confusing, but are they pretty easy to execute by and large? Jieshuo users find them okay?
Well, for me, I'm using some of them. Actually, it's like you're doing the, let's say the swipe up then right. Instead of doing it quickly upright, like swiping up and down, sliding the finger, it will be like swiping up, then long sliding right. So you will be sliding longer. Or another method or another way to use it is just by swiping up, then right, and then putting or keeping the finger slightly on the screen, or just swiping up and then holding for a bit and then swiping right. So those are three ways to do the same gesture. But the normal gesture will be just by doing the swipe up, then right, quickly, and without having the swipes to be long. Actually, they should be just short swipes.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
But they all work fairly well. Like you sort of hit them 100% of the time or near enough. But they perform well.
Let's be honest. I think 90%. Yeah. But they are, I mean, they are useful. I use them for basic stuff, like for copying. Actually, I use one for clipboard history, one for paste. So those are the things that I used most of the times, and I use them for those things. So this just gives you the picture that it's really working.
Excellent. Oh, that's good.
I'm sitting here and I'm feeling like a June bug in a whirlwind. I'm kind of all confused. Probably that's where the name comes from. CSR, Screen Reader. Yeah. But seriously, Karene, that's a great idea. If you could use one gesture and yet be able to kind of achieve something out of it by the way you do it, I think it's a good implementation. It's just a matter of getting used to it.
Yeah, obviously.
Look, my friend, let me tell you something. For kids and teenagers, you use TalkBack. If you grow up and you are mature enough and your mind is mature enough,
I like it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
brother.
Warren's never been a fan of functionality or choice.
Yeah.
So he's not going to like it.
Oh,
He prefers
boy.
phones with one accessibility shortcut. He doesn't like
Extra
screen
gestures.
readers that actually do things. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That was a nice job.
Yeah.
Up next is the tip of the week. This is a feature where we show you a trick or two on how to use some certain feature on your phone or some other feature in a given app. And now for this week's episode, here's your tip of the week.
And we close this week's episode with a tip of the week. And Warren returns to AntennaPod and shows us how to manage chapters.
Hi. For episode 191 tip of the week, this is demonstrating how you go about managing chapters using the AntennaPod. In our last week's episode, we had an app bonanza and I demonstrated the AntennaPod. However, it was a little bit too lengthy, so I didn't show you how to manage chapters. Today, though, we'll do that as a tip of the week. And here's how you go about managing chapters in AntennaPod. I am already in the app, and I will tap on the Blind Android Users podcast and especially episode 190. And here we are.
Episode 190, third quarter app. Back button out of list.
Now, what we need to do is tap at the title or the title of the episode at the very bottom of the phone.
Page, episode 190, third quarter app bonanza, 1 hour 16 minutes, July 27th, 2024, WebView.
And I'll tap here. Upon tapping on that episode name, we're now on a new page. And here we have some buttons. Starting from the top left, we got
Back button.
and moving right,
Add to favorites button.
right,
Set sleep timer button.
right,
Cast disconnected.
and right.
Share button.
That's what you have there. And below that is basically the show notes. However, if you want to see the show notes, you could scroll up and you'll see that it'll reveal it. Now, below that, though, we have this information, starting from the left and going right.
Swipe up to read show notes in vertical pager.
And moving right,
Chapters.
we have chapters. And to the right of that, we've got a couple buttons. We've got
Previous chapter, button.
previous chapter, and to the right of it.
Next chapter, button.
And then below that, we have the playback controls. At the very bottom, starting from the left, we've got,
Playback speed, out of grid pager.
that's the playback speed.
1.00.
Moving right,
Rewind, button.
moving right,
Play, button.
right,
Fast forward, button.
right.
Skip episode, button.
That's the last button there on the bottom right. Now let's look at the chapters, moving my finger just slightly above the
Fast forward, button. Chapters, in vertical pager.
is the chapters. So if I tap here,
Chapters. 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. Intro. Duration. 3 minutes. In list.
so we are here on the chapter page, and it tells you the duration, how many minutes each chapter has. So the first one is the intro, and the intro is 3 minutes. And to the right of each of these chapters is a play button.
Play chapter.
Next,
0 hours 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Announcements. Duration. 3 minutes.
and if I move my finger to the right
Play chapter.
and I tap, I double tap to stop the playback. That's how you go about managing chapters using your AntennaPod. Thanks for listening.
Does AntennaPod let you mark chapters in advance that you'd like to listen to? I did hear of a podcast app on the other platform that did that, and that sounded like quite a neat chapter handling feature. So you'd go in, tick the ones, and it would just skip all the other ones. I don't know if we have an app that does that.
I don't think I see such a feature. It could be maybe under one of those nested menus that, I didn't go into, but I can't say for sure.
No, most don't, to be fair, and I'm only aware of one app on iOS that ever did it, but it did sound quite neat. I have to say I'm not a massive user of chapters, even though we support them. I just tend to either play a podcast or not play it. I don't tend to fiddle around with them, but I know a lot of people like them, and it's important we have them. But I did quite like the idea of that sort of functionality.
What is nice is that, and you saw it in Warren's demo just now, is that this has controls to skip to the next chapter in the play controls. So if, like in a previous segment of this podcast, if, we were running our mouths about something and you were like, okay, I'm ready for the next subject, you could just hit that next chapter button without having to bring up the chapters list or anything, and it just takes you right
Exactly.
So that's a nice, I'm glad they have that.
I like that feature too, because if you know what the chapters are, especially you listen to the intro and you're listening to the Spotlight or Android Basics, and you didn't want to hear the confused screen reader, you could just skip, right?
You can skip until you reach the commentary screen reader episode, and then you just the commentary segment, and then you watch it and leave the podcast.
Oh, that might have to go in the outtakes. Karene called it the confused screen reader. Oops.
Exactly. You can, and you'd know the intro music, so just keep hitting skip to next chapter until you hear the right music that you're there for, and then just
Exactly. All good things must end. Thus, it's curtain drawing time, bringing us to the close of this week's episode. Coming up, though, we give you information on how to get hold of us.
Well, that's it for this week, folks. John, how can everyone get in touch with us?
To contact us, simply send an email to contactus@blindandroidusers.com. If you'd prefer, you can leave a voicemail by calling +1 307 202 9797. You can join our mailing list by sending a blank email to Blind Android Users Plus Subscribe at groups.io. You can join our Facebook and Telegram groups or subscribe to our YouTube channel using the links in the podcast show notes or YouTube video description. And you can find all of this information and more at our website, blindandroidusers.com.
Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We shall see you next week. Say bye-bye to the nice people.
Thank you, everyone, for always listening to us. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Goodbye. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
Later. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Blind Android Users Podcast. Until we see you next week, don't forget to leave us your comments and suggestions via our email contact or using any of our social media sites. Have a great week.